Hello there folks, I'm the Lon Chaney Reviewer, and welcome to Silent Film Saturday, episode number 23. I'm continuing to count down the 19th episode poll results, and this week's episode is The Kid, which had interesting history because it was in last place when this poll started, and it ended up with 7 votes, which is kind of interesting. Now, let me just take a look at the supplements, and I'll describe to you the film and how I felt about it. This is the MK2 edition, so realize it's 2 discs. So realize that this edition is expensive. You might want to wait for the Criterion edition, or you could check it online. It's in public domain, if I'm not mistaken. You can probably catch it online. It's also on Hulu Plus because they have all the a lot of the Chaplin films on Hulu Plus. But there's a lot of shorts. There's like a feature film with Jackie Coogan. There's some shorts with Chaplin. Deleted scenes that were deleted in 1971 because this is a re-edit that was released in 1971, similar to what happened with The Gold Rush. Introduction by David Robinson, very informative. Chaplin Today documentary, The Kid, very informative again. How to make movies, it's basically everybody showing Chaplin showing his new studio off. And posters, trailers, photo gallery, and the Chaplin collection. And that's basically this DVD release. The plot of this film goes like this. You have an orphan child who's abandoned by his mother. The mother is played by Edna Purviance. And the child grows up to be Jackie Coogan, but before then, the child ends up in the hands of the tramp, played by Charles Chaplin, as usual. And, as always, basically, he doesn't want to take care of this kid at first. He's quite reluctant. Makes me think of the Chaplin at Keystone, because earlier Chaplin, Tramp is much more irresponsible. A much more unsympathetic character, in my opinion. But eventually, with the Mutual films, and of course, stuff for, a little bit of First National, and of course his stuff with United Artists, the Tramp became the ultimate, an ultimate character. And this is basically kind of his start in terms of feature-length films. He at first doesn't want to take care of the kid, but basically becomes Jackie Coogan's father in the film, essentially. And it's a really nice relationship. They take care of each other, they make food for each other, and they provide money. The kid is able to help Chaplin make money. I don't want to say how, but it's done in a somewhat clever way. And they love each other. And it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship on screen. Now, what else is interesting is that before this time, Chaplin lost a son. He had a malformed child who died only a few days after he was born, which is really quite tragic. Horrible thing to have to bury your child. And he partially made that in this film for that kid. And he really was serious with this film. It took him a long time to make this film. Now, Chaplin's always infamous for taking a long time on this film. And he took such a long time that distributors were worried, and he had to release a mediocre comedy known as A Day's Pleasure while he was making The Kid. So he was very serious about making The Kid, and he shot a lot of footage for The Kid. And what turns out, the film was only 50 minutes long. It's not a very long film, which is why I think it's a very good introductory film to silent neophytes, or people who are just starting to look into Chaplin and silent comedy, because it really shows you, comedy isn't just about making people laugh. You also have to care about the characters in order to help make you laugh at these situations, but you can also cry with these characters as well. Chaplin does that in spades in a lot of his films, but it really starts here with The Kid in terms of being a very serious subject matter. Towards later on in the film, the famous scene in the film is, of course, when Jackie Coogan's being taken away from Chaplin, and it's one of these moments where the kid is crying because he doesn't want to go to the orphanage and the workhouse, and Chaplin has to save him. And as an audience, we're like, "Gosh darn it, save him!" And it's one of those moments that's not logical. There's no logos. It's pure pathos. It's pure emotion, and it's an audience-driven moment where it's like we want Chaplin to save this kid. We love these two characters so much that I would love, I please have this be a happy ending, and so much so that every time I see that, I get tears in my eyes, and that's why I've only seen the film about 3 or 4 times in my life, because it's a really hard film for me to get through. Just thinking about, this father figure essentially losing their child. It was also very personal for Chaplin too, because there was a point in his life when he was a kid, where his mother couldn't take care of him for a period of time, and he and his brother Sidney had to go to the workhouse, and that's partially inspired by that. So it's a very real and frightening and sad, really dramatic scene. That's not the only dramatic scene, though. Of course, you have where the Edna Provine's character, who's the mother of Jackie Coogan in the film, like I said earlier, she becomes an opera singer, and then she realizes that Jackie Coogan is her son, and she's just so devastated, and the regret and all that. And Edna Provine's conveys this very well. She is a very good silent actress, in my opinion. Obviously thanks to the direction of Chaplin. Let me talk about some comedy to lighten up the moment. There's a scene where Chaplin ends up is a dream sequence, and he's thought he lost the kid at a certain point. And then it turns out it feels like he's in heaven or dreamland, and everybody has like angel wings, and you see like a dog just flying away, and it looks so fake, but it's charming. Seeing this dog, just like, what's going on? I can imagine on set the dog's like, what the hell? And it's like flying away. It's a very charming scene, and I chuckled at that scene. Also because Lita Gray, his second wife, is in that scene, and she was 12 years old at the time. So, oh god. Another comedic scene I like to mention is, or when they're eating breakfast, and Chaplin has his blanket as like a robe. There's the scene where Jackie Coogan's fighting another child in like this easy street area. And Chaplin congratulates him at first, but then once the brother arrives, he's like, you shouldn't hurt this kid. You shouldn't hurt him. And I like stuff like that. But I do feel this is a more dramatic film than it is a comedy, which is interesting, because we know Chaplin is the great comedic director. But also this film has a heart. It's dramatic, and it tells the story very well. Also, the musical score, especially during that moment where the kid is taken away, is such a powerful moment in the film, and Chaplin's score just exemplifies that so well. Also, Jackie Coogan, people talk about child performances and say, oh, he was okay. But Jackie Coogan is genuinely probably one of the best child performances in any movie. Great performance that Chaplin's able to get out of him, and really one of my favorite Chaplin side characters in a film. And it's also interesting because in the Dan Kamen's book about Chaplin, he talks about how the early Keystone period, nobody had a sidekick or like a buddy. Everybody was an enemy. Everybody was trying to compete, but the kid was kind of a contrast to that, because you have Chaplin and the kid as these two sidekicks that are trying to get along, and they support each other. So I really like that dynamic. Like I said, this is a classic. This got into the National Film Registry just about 2 years ago. For those of you who are outside the United States, it's very important. And helps. It's the Library of Congress says this is a very important film, and selected for preservation. It's basically in a spiritual sense, belongs to America, because it's very important. And The Kid is a very important film. If you're a silent film fan, if you're a silent neophyte, if you just like a good movie, if you like classic movies, check this out. It's only 50 minutes, and it's not Chaplin's best film, in my opinion. I think my favorite Chaplin film has to be Modern Times, in my opinion. That's my favorite. But this is a great film, and it serves us as to understanding Chaplin, work methods and Chaplin's way of storytelling. And that's The Kid. 23rd episode of Silent Film Saturday. Next week is the 24th episode, I want to say. The 24th. And I would really like to talk about a film that's much longer than The Kid. Now, The Kid's only 50 minutes, but next week I'm talking about a 5-part serialized motion picture, 1913 through 1914. Fantomas. See you next week.